The morning sun painted golden streaks across the ancient stones of Westminster Abbey as crowds began gathering along the sidewalks. Children clutched small British flags in their hands while parents checked their phones for the exact arrival time. The air buzzed with excitement and anticipation. Today was special. The Prince and Princess of Wales were coming to the Abbey for a youth mentorship event, and everyone wanted to catch a glimpse of the beloved royal couple. Inside the historic Abbey, volunteers made final preparations. Fresh flowers adorned the entrance, their sweet fragrance mixing with the smell of old wood and stone that had witnessed centuries of history. Young people from various charities across London sat nervously in the pews, adjusting their clothes and whispering among themselves. These teenagers had been selected from difficult backgrounds, each with their own story of struggle and hope. Some came from foster care, others from families facing poverty, and many had overcome personal challenges that would break most adults. 15-year-old Maya sat near the front, her hands trembling slightly. She had grown up in a small council flat in East London with her grandmother after her parents passed away in a car accident. School had been her escape, and despite everything, she dreamed of becoming a doctor. When the invitation arrived to meet the Prince and Princess of Wales, she thought it was a mistake. Now, sitting in Westminster Abbey, the weight of the moment settled on her shoulders. She wondered what she would say if they spoke to her directly. 3 rows behind her, 17-year-old James tried to calm his racing heart. He had spent 2 years in the foster care system before finding stability with his current family. Art had saved him during those dark times, and now he volunteered at a community center teaching younger kids to paint. His art teacher had nominated him for this event, believing his story could inspire others. James looked around at the magnificent architecture, trying to memorize every detail so he could sketch it later. The Abbey's doors opened wider, and a hush fell over the crowd outside. 2 black cars pulled up smoothly to the entrance. Security personnel moved with practiced efficiency, but there was no sense of distance or coldness. This was not a formal state occasion. This was about connection, about reaching across the divide between royalty and regular citizens to touch hearts and inspire dreams. Prince William stepped out first, his tall frame visible over the crowd. He smiled warmly and waved, not the stiff royal wave of old films, but a genuine gesture of greeting. Then Kate emerged, elegant in a simple blue dress that somehow looked both regal and approachable. Her smile reached her eyes as she paused to accept flowers from a young girl at the barrier. The crowd erupted in cheers, but the couple took their time, speaking to several children and elderly people who had waited hours for this moment. As they entered Westminster Abbey, the teenagers inside stood respectfully. William and Kate walked down the center aisle, but instead of heading straight to the designated area, they stopped at each row. Kate knelt beside a young boy in a wheelchair, speaking quietly with him for several minutes while William chatted with a group of girls who giggled nervously at his attention. There was no rush, no sense that this was just another obligation on a packed schedule. Maya felt her nervousness fade as she watched the royal couple interact with others. Kate's laugh was genuine and warm when a boy made a joke. William listened intently when a girl shared her dream of becoming an engineer, asking thoughtful questions that showed real interest. These were not the distant figures from television screens or magazine covers. They were real people who seemed to genuinely care about the young lives in front of them. The formal program was scheduled to begin in 20 minutes, but already something magical was happening. The ancient walls of Westminster Abbey, which had witnessed coronations and royal weddings, now held a different kind of ceremony. This was about hope being passed from one generation to another, about privilege recognizing responsibility, and about 2 people using their platform to lift others up. As William and Kate made their way toward Maya's row, she took a deep breath. She had no idea that this day would change her life, that the conversation she was about to have would set her on a path she never imagined possible. Behind her, James gripped his sketchbook, ready to capture not just the physical details of this encounter, but the emotion and inspiration that filled every corner of this sacred space. The morning sun continued to stream through the Abbey's stained glass windows, casting colorful patterns across the floor where young people sat waiting for their moment with royalty, and where royalty waited to learn from the courage and resilience of youth. Kate reached Maya's row and paused, her eyes meeting the young girl's nervous gaze. Without hesitation, she sat down right next to Maya in the pew. something her security team had long grown accustomed to, but still made headlines whenever photographed. William stood nearby, engaging with other students but keeping a subtle eye on his wife as she worked her magic with young people. Maya's mouth went dry as Kate turned to her with a warm smile. The princess wore minimal makeup, and up close Maya could see the laugh lines around her eyes, signs of a life filled with genuine joy despite the pressures of royal duty. Kate did not ask the typical questions adults usually asked. She did not start with where Maya went to school or what her grades were. Instead, she simply said hello and waited, giving Maya space to find her voice. After a moment, Maya managed to introduce herself. Her voice shook slightly, but Kate's encouraging nod gave her confidence. Soon Maya found herself talking about her grandmother, about how hard it had been to lose her parents, and about her dream of becoming a doctor. She expected sympathy or pity, the usual responses adults gave when they heard her story. Instead, Kate listened with fierce attention, occasionally asking questions that showed she was truly processing every word. When Maya finished, Kate shared something unexpected. She spoke about her own struggles with public speaking and anxiety when she first joined the royal family. She talked about feeling inadequate and worried that she would never measure up to expectations. Maya's eyes widened. This was the Princess of Wales, someone who always looked so composed and confident in every photograph and video. The idea that she had struggled with similar fears made Maya's own challenges feel less isolating. Across the aisle, William had pulled up a chair next to James. The prince noticed the sketchbook James held protectively against his chest and asked about it. James hesitated before opening it, revealing pages filled with drawings of buildings, people, and abstract designs. William leaned in, genuinely impressed by the talent displayed on those pages. He asked James about his technique, his inspiration, and his dreams for the future. James explained his time in foster care, how art became his therapy when words failed him. He talked about the community center where he now taught younger children, helping them express emotions through colors and shapes. William listened without interruption, and when James finished, the prince shared his own experiences with mental health advocacy. He spoke about the importance of finding healthy outlets for difficult emotions, and praised James for turning his pain into something that helped others. Around them, similar conversations unfolded throughout the Abbey. Kate moved from student to student, spending real time with each one. She did not simply shake hands and move on. She sat with them, laughed with them, and sometimes held their hands when emotions ran high. One girl began crying while sharing her story of homelessness, and Kate simply sat quietly beside her, offering tissues and a comforting presence without trying to fix everything with words. William demonstrated a different but equally powerful approach. He engaged the young men with questions about sports, technology, and their interests before gently steering conversations toward deeper topics. With one boy who had been excluded from school multiple times, William talked about second chances and the importance of having people who believed in you even when you struggled to believe in yourself. The boy, who had entered the Abbey with a defensive posture and skeptical expression, gradually relaxed under William's genuine interest. The formal program had been forgotten. The planned speeches and presentations seemed unnecessary now. What was happening organically in the pews of Westminster Abbey was far more meaningful than any scripted event could be. Young people who had felt invisible their entire lives were being truly seen by two of the most famous people in the world. Their stories, so often dismissed or overlooked, were being honored and validated. Maya found herself telling Kate about a teacher who had believed in her when she almost gave up on school. She described staying after class for extra help, the teacher bringing her snacks because she knew Maya often went hungry, the encouragement that kept her pushing forward. Kate's eyes glistened with tears as she listened. She pulled out her phone and asked if Maya would mind if she took a note. She wanted to reach out to that teacher personally to thank her for the difference she had made. James showed William a sketch he had made of the community center where he volunteered. William studied it carefully, asking about specific details and what each room was used for. Then he asked James a question that caught the young artist off guard. What did James need to expand his program? What resources would help him reach more children? James had never thought that big before. He had been focused on just surviving and helping a few kids at a time. William's question opened up a world of possibilities. As the conversations continued, something profound was taking place. These young people were not being talked down to or treated as charity cases. They were being engaged as equals, their experiences and insights valued. Kate asked for advice on how to better support youth mental health initiatives. William wanted to know what young people wished adults understood about their struggles. The questions showed respect and a genuine desire to learn. The Abbey staff watched in amazement. They had hosted countless royal events, but this felt different. The scheduled 2-hour visit had already stretched past 3 hours, and there was no sign of anyone wanting to leave. Security personnel exchanged glances but said nothing. They knew their principals well enough to understand that this connection, this moment, was exactly why William and Kate did this work. Maya glanced around and caught James's eye. He smiled at her and she smiled back. Something had shifted for both of them. They had entered Westminster Abbey feeling like outsiders, young people from difficult circumstances who had been given a charitable opportunity to meet royalty. They were leaving as individuals who had been truly seen, heard, and valued. The difference was everything. A young boy named Thomas, only 13 years old, had been sitting quietly in the back corner throughout most of the event. He had come from a domestic violence shelter where he lived with his mother and younger sister. Thomas had built walls around himself, learning early that showing emotion or vulnerability only led to more pain. He watched the interactions around him with guarded eyes, not quite believing that anyone as important as the prince and princess would genuinely care about kids like him. William noticed Thomas sitting apart from the others. The prince had developed a sixth sense over years of youth work, an ability to spot the children who were hurting the most behind carefully constructed masks. He excused himself from his current conversation and made his way to the back of the Abbey. Instead of sitting right next to Thomas, which might feel invasive, William sat one seat away, leaving space while still being present. For several minutes, William said nothing. He simply sat there, looking up at the magnificent Abbey ceiling, giving Thomas time to adjust to his presence. Finally, Thomas broke the silence with a question that caught William off guard. He asked if being a prince meant you never had problems or felt scared. The question was asked with such raw honesty that William knew this moment required complete truthfulness. William turned to face Thomas fully. He spoke about losing his mother at 15, about the pain that never fully goes away, about the fear that sometimes still gripped him when he thought about his own children growing up in the spotlight. He talked about the pressure of expectations, the weight of duty, and the times he had felt overwhelmed and uncertain. Thomas listened with wide eyes. He had never imagined that someone like Prince William could understand what it felt like to be scared or hurt. As they talked, Thomas's walls began to crack. He shared small pieces of his story at first, testing to see if William would judge or pity him. When he found neither, the words came faster. He talked about the nights hiding with his sister while his father raged, about the fear that followed him even now in the safety of the shelter, about feeling ashamed that he could not protect his mother. William listened without trying to fix anything, knowing that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is simply bearing witness to their pain. Meanwhile, Kate had gathered a group of girls around her in one of the side chapels. They sat in a circle on the floor, and Kate had kicked off her heels, sitting cross-legged like the teenagers around her. They were discussing something that had come up organically, the pressure young girls faced from social media and unrealistic beauty standards. Kate spoke candidly about her own struggles with public scrutiny, about the edited photos and harsh headlines, about teaching her daughter to value inner strength over external appearance. One girl, Sophia, spoke up with tears in her eyes. She confessed that she had been cyberbullied so severely that she had attempted to take her own life 6 months earlier. The other girls gasped, but Kate remained calm, moving closer to Sophia and taking her hand. She thanked Sophia for her bravery in sharing her story and asked what had helped her keep going. Sophia talked about a counselor at school who checked on her every day, about finding a passion for writing poetry, about slowly learning that her worth was not determined by cruel comments from strangers online. Kate asked if Sophia had any of her poetry with her. Shyly, Sophia pulled out her phone and showed Kate several poems she had written. Kate read them carefully, her expression showing genuine emotion. She told Sophia that her words had power, that her experience could help other young people who felt alone in their struggles. She asked if Sophia would consider sharing her poetry as part of an upcoming mental health awareness campaign the royal family was supporting. Sophia could hardly believe what she was hearing. Back in the main area of the Abbey, Maya had been introduced to James by one of the organizers. They discovered they lived in neighboring areas and shared similar dreams of using their talents to help their communities. James showed Maya some of his artwork, and she told him about her plan to become a doctor who served underprivileged neighborhoods. They exchanged phone numbers, promising to stay in touch. Neither realized that this connection, formed under the Abbey's ancient arches, would develop into a lifelong friendship and eventually a partnership to create a youth center that combined art therapy with health education. William eventually drew Thomas into a larger group conversation, gently helping him feel included without forcing anything. Thomas found himself talking to other boys who had experienced trauma, realizing for the first time that he was not alone. One boy spoke about his experience with a father in prison. Another talked about surviving a house fire that had killed his younger brother. Each story was different, but the thread of pain and resilience connected them all. Kate brought her group of girls to join the others, and soon the entire group of young people were sitting together in the center of Westminster Abbey, with William and Kate sitting among them as part of the circle, rather than separate from it. Someone asked William what he thought made a good leader. His answer surprised many of them. He talked about vulnerability, about admitting when you do not have all the answers, about listening more than speaking, and about using whatever privilege or platform you have to lift others up. A girl raised her hand and asked Kate what she would tell her younger self if she could go back in time. Kate thought for a moment before answering. She said she would tell herself that it is okay to be imperfect, that the journey matters more than the destination, and that the most important thing is to stay true to your values, even when it feels difficult. She added that she would tell her younger self to be kinder to herself, to celebrate small victories, and to remember that everyone is fighting battles others cannot see. The afternoon sun now streamed through the Abbey windows at a different angle, painting the gathered group in warm light. What had started as a formal event had transformed into something much more meaningful. Young people who had felt marginalized and forgotten had spent hours in genuine conversation with two individuals who could have been anywhere in the world, but chose to be right here. Right now, fully present with them, Thomas, who had entered the Abbey with his walls firmly in place, found himself laughing at a joke William made. Sophia held the business card of Kate's assistant, knowing that her poetry might actually reach people who needed to hear it. Maya and James sat side by side, already planning their future collaboration. Every young person in that Abbey had been touched by the experience in some way. Their sense of possibility expanded, their belief in themselves strengthened. As the group settled into comfortable conversation, one of the organizers approached William with a worried expression, quietly informing him that they were significantly behind schedule. William glanced at Kate, who had clearly overheard. She gave him a slight smile and an almost imperceptible shrug. They both knew they should probably wrap things up and move on to their next engagement. Neither of them made any move to leave. Instead, William suggested something unexpected. He asked the young people if they would be interested in a group activity. The teenagers looked at each other with curiosity. James tentatively raised his hand and asked what kind of activity. William smiled and said he honestly had not thought that far ahead. He asked the group what they would want to do if they had the Prince and Princess of Wales at their disposal for the next hour. The suggestions started flowing. One boy wanted to play football in the Abbey, which made everyone laugh, including the very stressed-looking Abbey staff member who had visions of priceless artifacts being knocked over. A girl suggested they all share one thing they were grateful for. Another boy jokingly suggested they order pizza and have a party. To everyone's shock, Kate pulled out her phone and asked if anyone actually objected to the pizza idea. Within 30 minutes, several pizza boxes were delivered to Westminster Abbey, an event that the delivery driver would tell his grandchildren about for decades to come. The ancient Abbey, which had hosted coronations and state funerals, now hosted an impromptu pizza party. William helped distribute paper plates while Kate made sure everyone got their choice of toppings. The formality that usually surrounded royal events had completely dissolved. As they ate, sitting casually throughout the Abbey, conversations deepened even further. Thomas opened up about his dreams of becoming a police officer, wanting to help families like his own. William talked to him seriously about the career path, even offering to connect him with a police mentor program. Thomas could barely believe that the future king was genuinely invested in helping him achieve his goals. Maya found herself in conversation with Kate about medical school. Kate admitted she did not know much about the application process, but pulled out her phone to make notes about who she could connect Maya with. She knew several doctors through her charity work and promised to set up mentorship opportunities. Maya watched in amazement as the Princess of Wales typed notes into her phone about Maya's interests and goals, treating her dreams with the same seriousness one would give to matters of state. Sophia had been approached by several other young people who wanted to talk after hearing about her cyberbullying experience and suicide attempt. She found herself at the center of a small group, sharing what had helped her recovery. Kate observed from a respectful distance, recognizing that sometimes the best thing adults can do is step back and let young people support each other. However, when she noticed Sophia becoming emotional, Kate quietly moved closer, offering silent support without interrupting. James had started sketching the scene around him, his pencil moving rapidly across the page as he tried to capture this extraordinary moment. William noticed and asked if he could watch. James agreed, and soon William was sitting beside him, genuinely fascinated by how James translated the three-dimensional scene into lines and shadows on paper. William asked questions about technique and perspective, and James found himself teaching the prince about art, an inversion of the expected dynamic that felt surprisingly natural. One of the girls, Amira, had been largely quiet throughout the event. She wore a hijab and had recently moved to London from Syria as a refugee. Her English was still developing, and she felt self-conscious about speaking in front of others. Kate noticed her sitting slightly apart and approached gently, sitting down beside her without immediately trying to start a conversation. After a few minutes of comfortable silence, Amira began to speak in halting English about her journey from Syria, about the family members she had lost, about the challenge of building a new life in a country where everything felt foreign. Kate listened with tears in her eyes, occasionally asking gentle questions to help Amira find the words. She did not rush her or try to finish her sentences. She simply gave Amira the space and time to share her story. At her own pace, Amira talked about missing her homeland while also feeling grateful for safety and opportunity. In the UK, she expressed the complex grief of losing her old life while trying to embrace a new one. Kate validated these contradictory feelings, explaining that it was possible to feel multiple things at once, that grief and gratitude could coexist. Amira felt truly understood for perhaps the first time since arriving in London. William had gathered a group of boys and was engaged in a surprisingly competitive discussion about football teams. The conversation was light and fun, but beneath the surface it served a purpose. These boys, many of whom struggled to open up about emotions, found it easier to connect over something low stakes first. Once they were comfortable and laughing, William gradually steered the conversation toward deeper topics, asking about their goals and challenges in a way that felt natural rather than forced. The Abbey staff had given up on trying to maintain any semblance of the original schedule. Even the security team had relaxed their usual stance, some of them unable to hide smiles as they watched the genuine joy and connection filling the ancient space. One security officer later told his wife that in 15 years of protecting royals, he had never seen anything quite like what happened that day at Westminster Abbey. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows through the stained glass windows, someone suggested they go around the circle and share one thing they had learned or felt during the day. It was the kind of exercise that could feel forced or awkward, but in this moment with this group it felt right. The young people went first, sharing insights and gratitude that brought tears to many eyes. When it was Kate's turn, she spoke honestly about how much she had learned from listening to their stories. She talked about the resilience and wisdom she had witnessed, about how humbled she felt by their strength in the face of challenges she could barely imagine. She promised that she and William would not forget this day or the young people they had met, and somehow everyone believed her. William spoke last. He thanked the young people for their vulnerability and trust, for sharing their stories and their dreams. He talked about how easy it would be to become cynical or hardened by difficult experiences, but how each person in this circle had instead chosen hope and growth. He said that he and Kate were not there to inspire the young people, but rather the other way around. The work these teenagers were doing, often with no recognition or support, was what truly inspired him. The reality that the day had to end eventually settled over the group like a gentle melancholy. Outside, the London sky had turned a deep purple, and the streets had grown busier with evening commuters. Inside Westminster Abbey, a different kind of rush hour was happening, one where hearts and minds were rushing to hold on to every last moment of connection, before reality pulled everyone back to their separate lives. Kate's assistant had appeared at the entrance several times, each time looking more anxious about the schedule that had completely fallen apart. William's private secretary stood nearby, quietly canceling and rescheduling appointments that had been planned for months. Both staff members understood something important was happening here, something that mattered more than any formal dinner or official meeting. Still, they had jobs to do, and eventually, the prince and princess would have to leave. Before the final goodbyes, William made an announcement that surprised even his own staff. He told the young people that this would not be a one-time meeting. He and Kate wanted to stay connected with each of them. He asked if they would be comfortable sharing their contact information so that his team could follow up. Not for publicity or photo opportunities, he clarified, but for genuine ongoing support and mentorship. The response was overwhelming. Every single young person agreed. Kate's assistant moved through the group, carefully collecting email addresses and phone numbers, making notes about each person's specific interests and needs. William spoke with several of the charity workers who had brought the young people, discussing ways to provide better resources and support for their programs. Maya approached Kate hesitantly, still clutching the piece of paper where Kate had written down the names of doctors she could connect Maya with. She wanted to say thank you, but the words felt inadequate for what she was feeling. Before she could speak, Kate pulled her into a warm hug. She told Maya that she saw something special in her, a determination and compassion that would make her an incredible doctor. She made Maya promise to email her when she applied to medical school, and to let her know if she needed a reference or support. James showed William the final sketch he had completed, a drawing of the entire group sitting together in the Abbey. William studied it carefully, impressed by how James had captured not just the physical scene but the emotion of the moment. He asked if he could purchase the drawing, but James shook his head. He wanted to give it as a gift. William accepted gratefully, promising that he would frame it and keep it in his office as a reminder of this day. Thomas, who had been so guarded when he arrived, found himself struggling to hold back tears as he shook William's hand. The prince did not let go right away. He looked Thomas in the eyes and told him that he had a bright future ahead, that the courage it took to survive what he had been through was the same courage that would help him achieve his dreams. He reminded Thomas that asking for help was strength, not weakness, and that there were people who cared about him and wanted to support him. Sophia presented Kate with a small notebook containing several of her poems, handwritten and illustrated with simple drawings. Kate accepted it like the precious gift it was, promising to read every word. She told Sophia that her voice mattered, that her experience could light the way for others struggling in darkness. She gave Sophia her assistant's direct contact information, not just a general office number, making it clear that she genuinely wanted to stay in touch. Amira approached Kate shyly, carrying something wrapped in colorful fabric. When she unwrapped it, everyone saw a beautiful hand-embroidered bookmark she had made using traditional Syrian techniques. She explained in her developing English that she had made it the night before, wanting to give Kate something meaningful. Kate's eyes filled with tears as she accepted it, telling Amira that it was one of the most beautiful gifts she had ever received. She asked Amira to tell her about the symbols embroidered into the fabric, and Amira explained their meanings, her face glowing with pride in her cultural heritage. The other young people gathered around, creating an impromptu receiving line, but nothing about it felt formal. These were young people hugging and thanking two individuals who had given them something precious: their time, their attention, and their genuine care. William and Kate moved through the group slowly, making sure to have a final personal moment with each teenager. One boy, Marcus, who had barely spoken all day, suddenly found his voice. He told William that he had come to the event expecting to be disappointed, expecting fake smiles and rehearsed speeches. Instead, he had found something he had been searching for without knowing it: proof that there were adults in the world who genuinely cared about young people beyond what they could gain from them. His honesty brought a hush over the group. William thanked him for his words and his willingness to give the day a chance despite his skepticism. As the final goodbyes were being said, one of the Abbey staff members approached with a large book. It was the Westminster Abbey guest book, where important visitors signed their names. Traditionally, only dignitaries and royals signed it. William asked if all the young people could sign it as well. The staff member hesitated, clearly uncertain about breaking tradition, but William insisted. He said these young people were the most important visitors the Abbey had hosted in a long time. One by one, the teenagers signed their names in the historic guest book, their handwriting joining centuries of royal signatures. For many of them, it was a symbolic moment. Their names written into history, their presence acknowledged as significant. Maya signed carefully, her hand shaking slightly. James drew a small sketch next to his signature. Sophia added a line from one of her poems. Each signature was unique, a declaration that they mattered, that they had been here, that they counted. Finally, there was nothing left to do but actually leave. The group moved slowly toward the Abbey entrance, nobody wanting to be the first to walk out into the regular world. At the door, William and Kate turned back to face the young people one more time. Kate's voice was thick with emotion as she reminded them that they were loved, that they mattered, and that she and William would be following their journeys with genuine interest and care. William added that today had reminded him why he did this work, why it was important to use privilege and platform to connect rather than separate. He told the young people that they had given him and Kate a gift today, the gift of their stories and their trust. He promised that gift would not be wasted. As the royal couple walked out into the evening air, the crowd that had waited all day erupted in cheers. But William and Kate turned back one more time, waving not to the crowd but to the group of young people standing in the Abbey doorway. The teenagers waved back, many with tears streaming down their faces, all of them forever changed by a day that started as an obligation on a royal schedule, but became something much more meaningful for everyone involved. 3 months after that remarkable day at Westminster Abbey, the ripples of what happened continued to spread outward in ways nobody could have predicted. True to their word, William and Kate's team had followed up with every single young person who attended. But what surprised everyone was that William and Kate themselves stayed personally involved, not just delegating to staff members, but maintaining direct contact with several of the teenagers. Maya received an email 2 weeks after the event from a prominent physician at a London hospital. The doctor explained that the Princess of Wales had reached out personally, describing Maya's dreams and asking if she would be willing to mentor a promising young student. Maya began shadowing the doctor twice a month, learning about medicine while also receiving guidance on the university application process. The doctor became not just a mentor but a champion, writing a recommendation letter that helped Maya secure a full scholarship to medical school the following year. James found himself invited to display his artwork at a charity exhibition, attended by several members of the royal family. When Kate arrived at the exhibition, she sought out James's work first, spending 20 minutes discussing each piece with him and introducing him to art dealers and gallery owners. By the end of the evening, James had sold 3 paintings and received commissions for 2 more. More importantly, he had been taken seriously as an artist, his talent recognized beyond his difficult background. Thomas struggled in the weeks following the Abbey meeting. The contrast between that magical day and his difficult daily reality felt almost cruel. His home situation remained challenging, and he wondered if he had imagined the whole thing. Then a letter arrived from Kensington Palace. William had arranged for Thomas to enter a mentorship program with the Metropolitan Police. A detective sergeant began meeting with Thomas weekly, helping him understand the path to law enforcement while also serving as a stable, positive male role model. Thomas began to believe that his dream might actually be possible. Sophia's poetry appeared in a mental health awareness campaign launched by the Royal Foundation. Her words about surviving darkness and finding light reached thousands of young people struggling with similar issues. She began receiving messages from teenagers all over the UK, thanking her for making them feel less alone. Sophia had gone from feeling that her pain had no purpose to discovering that sharing her story could literally save lives. Kate sent her a personal note after the campaign launched, telling her how proud she was of Sophia's courage. Amira's story had particularly touched Kate's heart. The princess connected Amira with a refugee support organization that helped her continue her education and adjust to life in London. Kate also arranged for Amira to meet other Syrian refugees who had successfully built lives in the UK, providing hope and practical guidance. When Amira graduated from her English language course with top marks, she received a personal congratulatory message from Kate, along with an invitation to a palace garden party celebrating refugee achievement. But perhaps the most significant outcome was the friendship that developed between Maya and James. They had stayed in touch after the Abbey event, meeting regularly to discuss their dreams and support each other. 6 months later, they presented a proposal to the Royal Foundation for a community center that would combine health education with art therapy for young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. To their amazement, the foundation not only approved funding, but asked if they would like William and Kate to attend the official opening. The day the community center opened, a year after the Westminster Abbey meeting, felt like a full-circle moment. Maya and James stood at the entrance of the building they had only dreamed about, watching as young people from their neighborhoods filed in. The center offered free art classes, health workshops, mentoring programs, and a safe space for teenagers facing challenges. Everything they had talked about that day in the Abbey had become real. When William and Kate arrived for the opening ceremony, they greeted Maya and James like old friends. Kate hugged Maya tightly, whispering how incredibly proud she was. William shook James's hand and said he had kept his sketch from the Abbey hanging in his office at Kensington Palace, showing it to people as an example of why youth engagement mattered. The teenagers who had attended the Abbey event had all been invited to the center opening, and they gathered together, their bond still strong. During the ceremony, Maya gave a speech about how one day at Westminster Abbey had changed her life. She talked about feeling invisible before that day, about doubting whether someone like her could achieve big dreams. She credited William and Kate not just for their kindness, but for following through on their promises, for proving that their care was genuine and lasting. Her voice cracked with emotion as she described how that single day had set multiple lives on different, better trajectories. James unveiled a large mural he had painted on one of the center's walls. It depicted Westminster Abbey surrounded by diverse faces of young people, with light radiating from the building's doors. The symbolism was clear. That day had been a beacon of hope that continued to shine long after it ended. Kate stood in front of the mural for several minutes, her eyes tracing each face James had painted, many of them based on the teenagers who had attended the Abbey event. William spoke briefly at the ceremony, but his words carried weight. He talked about how easy it would be to host events, take photos, and move on to the next obligation. He said that real change required commitment beyond the cameras, relationships that extended past single meetings. He praised Maya and James for their vision and determination, and he praised all the young people who had trusted him and Kate with their stories. He reminded everyone that the work was just beginning. After the ceremony, William and Kate toured the center, spending time in each room. Kate sat in on an art therapy session, watching as young children used paint and clay to express emotions they could not yet put into words. William joined a group of teenagers in a health education workshop, asking questions and listening to their concerns about access to health care in their communities. Neither of them rushed through the tour. They were fully present just as they had been at Westminster Abbey. As the event wound down, Thomas approached William hesitantly. He had news to share. He had just been accepted into the police cadet program, the first step toward his dream career. William's face broke into a huge smile as he congratulated Thomas, pulling him into a brief hug. He told Thomas he wanted to hear about his progress and made sure Thomas had his office contact information. Thomas left feeling 10 feet tall, more confident in his path than ever before. The sun set over London as the last guests left the community center. Maya and James stood with William and Kate, looking at the building they had created together. Kate remarked that this was exactly what she and William had hoped would come from their work, young people empowered to create change in their own communities. William added that Maya and James had taught them as much as they had hopefully taught Maya and James. As the royal couple prepared to leave, they took one last photo with all the young people from the Abbey event who were present. In the photo, nobody looked stiff or formal. Everyone is smiling genuinely, arms around each other, comfortable and happy. It was not a photo of royals with charity cases. It was a photo of people who had connected authentically and maintained that connection, who had proven that genuine care could bridge any divide. That night, Maya sat in her small bedroom, looking at the acceptance letter from medical school that had arrived that morning. On her wall hung a photo from the Westminster Abbey day, with Kate's arm around her shoulder. She thought about the journey from that scared 15-year-old girl sitting nervously in the Abbey pews to the confident young woman about to start medical school. So much had changed, but the foundation of it all had been that single day when two people who could have been anywhere chose to be fully present with her. James worked late in his small studio, putting finishing touches on a painting commissioned by the Royal Foundation. His foster care days felt like a distant memory now, though he knew they would always be part of his story. He thought about the art program he now ran at the community center, about the young people finding healing through creativity, just as he once had. He remembered William watching him sketch in the Abbey, treating his art with such respect and genuine interest. That moment had helped him see himself as a real artist, not just a kid with a hobby. Across London, similar thoughts filled the minds of young people whose lives had been touched by that extraordinary day. Thomas studied for his police cadet exam, occasionally looking at the photo on his phone of him and William talking in the Abbey. Sophia worked on new poetry, her confidence as a writer growing with each piece. Amira practiced her English, dreaming of the university education that now seemed within reach thanks to the support network Kate had helped create. The following week, a package arrived at Kensington Palace addressed to William and Kate. Inside was a scrapbook created by all the young people from the Abbey event. Each person had contributed photos, artwork, letters, and updates about their lives. The final page contained a group message thanking the prince and princess for seeing them, hearing them, and standing